Those of you who are new here, my name is Womack and I'm a hypno-psychotherapist as well as an EMDR specialist. Now, I've been through trauma myself, PTSD as well as CPTSD, and I've been on a journey. I've had lots of ups and lots of downs, and I want to help you get through that as well. And that's why I quit my job years ago. I sold my business and trained to help people to go through this, to heal, because I know it's not easy. And I know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. That's the most important thing we've got to remember. There's light at the end of the tunnel. So today I want to look at what it is that's actually holding you back from success, because we all know that trauma creates coping mechanisms. So those coping mechanisms are often your fight, your flight, your freeze, or your fawn. These are kind of four basic coping mechanisms. But if we went a bit deeper, what do we actually find? We actually find that coping mechanisms can span a whole spectrum of different issues that stop us from living the life that we deserve, from living a healthy life, from living a successful financial life, from living a life full of friendships or great relationships. So I want to dive deep into those ones now and go through the things that are stopping you. Because until we realize the things that are stopping you, we can't start to work on them. Can't start to create a life that we deserve, because we have to let go of the past and accept that the past is the past, and that's okay. But we now have to think about, hey, we're in the past. We've been there. It exists. But let's look at it differently. Let's look at it from a resourceful point of view. So without further ado, let's move on to the first one that I want to talk about is low self-esteem. If you've ever suffered from narcissistic abuse or from childhood abuse, or even just had trauma happen to you, basically something happened to you where you're not feeling safe. If that happens, what happens, right? Your whole world gets destroyed. If you're feeling safe and then suddenly safety is broken, everything you felt about safety, you think, how could I be so wrong? All these kind of thoughts that are negative about yourself, I'm not good enough, start to pop up. And if you've never been in a place of safety because you were born into a narcissistic family, or any kind of childhood abuse, you're going to know that the world isn't safe. That's going to be the only world you know. So when it comes to trying, when it comes to succeeding in life, or putting yourself into situations where you risk failure or looking bad, of course, the coping mechanism is going to be to not try, to not put yourself in that situation, because failure feels so dangerous, because your coping mechanism has made you not try. And this way, it's kept the identity of someone who is a victim, someone who is struggling, and also someone who, if they did try, isn't trying hard enough, or only putting half a try in. So when you try, you're trying a little bit. And because of this, you're creating the self-fulfilling prophecy of, I've tried a little bit, it didn't work. See, I told you it didn't work. Filling this identity that things just aren't going to go your way. This is just the way the world is. And this makes sense. This is your coping mechanism. This is your strategy, your ego trying to protect itself. And that's okay. We want to say thank you to that part of us, because that part of us wants to keep us safe. But we need to remember that there's another view to look at the world. There's another framework that we can use. We don't have to stick to the same framework all the time. So low self-esteem turns into this feeling of inadequacy, feeling like we're not good enough, stopping us taking risks, because we see even the smallest of risk as a big risk. Does that make sense? We're limiting ourselves by not taking the chances, by not taking the opportunities, because we want to stay congruent with who we think we should be or who we are, not knowing that we are whole already, not knowing that we have these other components, not knowing that we have the strength to actually achieve the things we want to achieve. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. The next one I want to look at is trusting other people. We struggle to trust other people. And this makes sense. Why would you trust other people when other people have tried to hold you back? When you've had narcissists in your life, whether this be your family, your loved ones or your boss or your work colleagues, when they say something, they don't mean what they say. They're gaslighting you, they're confusing you. It doesn't make sense. So it's best not to trust anyone. That makes sense. Like in that world, the best thing you can do is not trust anyone, because if you're trusting someone in any of these arenas, relationships, work, family, you're going to get hurt because they're not being 100% truthful with you. But the problem with this is we then think we can't trust everyone. We start off thinking we can't trust ourselves because we blame ourselves for getting ourselves into the situation, even though we had no say in it. We blame everyone, even the people that would help us, because you've got to remember, most of the world isn't psychopathic or narcissistic. And in fact, in studies, they've shown that when you've been in a company and you're trying to work your way up the ladder, those who are in a company with a boss who's has empathy, they see the person working hard and they promote them. Whereas when the studies just looked at companies where the narcissist is the boss in the company, the boss sees that person working hard and just tries to make them work harder and get as much out of them as they can, promises them that they'll push them up, but they never do. They never get to where they want to go. So it really depends on the other person, and you've got to learn to trust your intuition. Learn to trust that you will make the right choices, that you will spot the danger. Because right now you're spotting every danger. You're spotting danger that isn't existing because you're living in a hyper vigilant state. That's going to hold you back from success, because any opportunity that comes your way, you're going to think, this isn't right for me. This is bad. I can't live with that. Okay. Now, next one is going to be avoidance. Very similar, but obviously we're going to avoid feeling. You're going to avoid situations. We're going to avoid people. If you want to be successful in life, you have to grow. And to grow, you have to put yourself in difficult situations. You have to be vulnerable. You have to allow yourself to experience the world. As the Buddha said, the world is suffering. Living is suffering. Life is suffering. But we need to find meaning within that suffering. We have to find what it means to us to suffer. Everyone's going to suffer. No one's going to be exempt from suffering. We're all going to have to lose a loved one. We're all going to have to get ill one day. Nothing lasts forever. But what we can do is live in the present between those moments. We don't have to suffer in those moments because we try the strategy of let's get to the end and let's worry about the end. And we're only thinking about the end. So we're not living in the present. We're living in the future, thinking, I need to be careful. I need to be careful. I need to watch out. I need to avoid this. I need to avoid that. I'm just not going to do anything. And that limits us. That stops us from being able to live the life that we truly, truly deserve. We end up withdrawing socially, avoiding relationships, avoiding business opportunities, avoiding joining groups, having fun, because we see all of that stuff as dangerous. Now, the next one that stops success, well, sometimes it creates success of a sort, is perfectionism. Now, perfectionism is something that can be quite deep. It can go quite deep when someone is feeling that they need validation. So if you're someone who's grown up thinking, I need validation, not being given validation by the loved ones, and the only way to get validation is, you believe, is by being good enough, which means being perfect. But that's so hard to get, because whatever you do, someone says, yeah, but you could have done better. Whatever you do, your parent has said, yeah, but so-and-so got an A+, and they're only, and they shouldn't have done, like, you should have got better than them. If everything you do means you've got to strive harder, this can create a certain level of success, because you're going to keep pushing and pushing and maybe become a billionaire. But you're never going to be happy. You're never going to be successful mentally. in a relationship, because you're never going to trust people. You're going to use those same tactics on other people. You're going to say, you're not good enough. You need to try harder. And when people say that's enough, that you're going to say, I don't believe you. Yeah, fine enough. You're saying it's enough, but it's not enough. I need to do more. I need to prove myself. Prove yourself to who? Prove yourself to no one, right? Why should you prove yourself? You don't have to prove yourself. If someone makes you prove yourself, that shows that they lack something. And if they're lacking something, that's their problem, not your problem. Now, the next coping mechanism is substance abuse, drugs, alcohol. This could be workaholism. Any of these things that keep us distracted. Some are more positive than others. If you're going to the gym every day, maybe it's more positive than taking drugs every day. But these are coping mechanisms. We're avoiding reality. We're avoiding life. We're keeping ourselves busy because we know that these external things that don't have human emotions attached to them can give us a sense of fulfillment. We're chasing this pleasure. Okay, we're on that hedonistic treadmill and we're needing more and more and more, going round and round and round this maze like a rat in a cage, unable to ever really fulfill ourselves. So then we think we just need more and more and more. So we have more and more drugs. We take more and more sex. We take more and more workaholism, whatever it is. We want more and more and more. We think that's the answer. When the truth is, the answer is letting go of all that. Letting go of trying to hug something that doesn't exist. And instead hugging ourselves. Of course, I understand why people do it. I understand why I used to do it. Now, looking back, because when you're in a relationship with someone and they're not giving you safety, they're not giving you support, they're not giving you love, reassurance, validation, when they're not giving you the things that you deserve, and in fact, they're giving you the opposite, and they're gaslighting you and they're hurting you. When you've been in a relationship like that, you're walking on eggshells. You can't trust this person. You can't trust this world. So we look for things that we can trust, and we can trust alcohol to always do what alcohol does. We can trust workaholism to always do what work does. We can trust the gym to always do what the gym does. These things don't change. Cocaine doesn't change. Smoking doesn't change. Sex doesn't change. It's always sex. The only difference is it becomes less and we need more, because we're always searching that first high. Because when we had that first high, we thought, wow, this is it. I'm free, I'm escaped, and I'm getting love. I'm being loved. This thing is giving me the sense of security that I missed when I was with a partner, or I missed from my mum, or I missed from my dad. And now we feel like we have a world that feels safe because the safety is in the drugs. The safety is in the coping mechanism. But the problem is all this leads to bad health. It leads to, down the road, it leads to, addiction and feeling bad about ourselves, because deep down we're not stupid. Deep down we know that what we're doing is killing us, is hurting us, and we don't want to admit it. And we don't want to do the hard work, to do something else, to find true love within us, to find true love from the universe, because that's where true love is. True love, it just exists. And although some people are blocked because of their generational trauma and they can't give it to you, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that you're not worthy of it. In fact, it's the opposite. It means you now have an opportunity to discover it, to create it for yourself, and then to give it to other people, because that is what matters. That is your control. You actually have far more control than you think. Now, another one is procrastination. You see, procrastination is basically a response to anxiety, to fear, when we think that if we delay something, we think that we're going to be safe. We can just avoid it. We don't have to go through the uncomfortability of doing something because there's stress around doing. Because if we do something, we might be successful. That could be stressful. We could fail. That could be stressful. Whatever it is that we feel stressful, we want to avoid that. We've been taught to avoid pain. We've been taught or we've taught ourselves that the pleasure is true success, is that comfortability is true success. So if we're going to avoid procrastinating, if we want to get stuff done, if we want to achieve things in life, we have to go through that pain. We have to embrace experiencing failure. We have to embrace experiencing success. That's scary. Sometimes that's far more scary than the fear of failure, because the fear of success, what does that mean? It means we're going to be seen. When you've been through trauma, when you've been through bad experiences, when you've had people want to hurt you, they want to hurt you when they can see you. And the only way that you had to keep yourself safe at the time was to not be seen, was to hide from the world, was to procrastinate. So what you're going through is the best opportunity that you could see at the time. But right now, that's not the best opportunity. Right now, that you want to have a healthy relationship, that you want to create a business, that you want to progress in your career, that you want more. Right now, procrastination is holding you back. It means that you're missing opportunities. It means that you're damaging relationships because you're scared to go all in. You're holding back. Okay. And what happens? You now start to believe that this is your fault, not the trauma's fault. So you blame yourself, and we've gone full circle now, because now we're going back to that low self-esteem that we started off with. We have low self-esteem again, and we start building on this sense of, I'm not good enough. And that's where procrastination comes from, right? It comes from this sense of hiding from the world to protect ourselves, yeah, which turns into lack of self-esteem. When we lack self-esteem, then we believe that we're not good enough. Now we have a belief that we're not good enough. And that belief that we're not good enough, or that belief that we don't deserve something, becomes our identity. When we have an identity, what we want to do is hold on to that identity. And the only way to break free from all of these, from procrastination, from all the avoidance kind of behaviors that we have, from the addiction behaviors, is to find a safe place within ourselves. Is to go within ourselves, to start doing that work. We can't allow the world outside to dictate us anymore, because we're just reacting to the world using these coping mechanisms that were useful once. We've now got to go through and start to heal, start that healing process. And of course, it's uncomfortable. Of course, it's not what we want. But rather than looking for the short-term safety, the short-term wins, we've got to go for the delayed gratification. We've got to know that and believe that in the future, by doing some good stuff that feels a little bit uncomfortable now, we're going to live a far better, more fulfilled life full of options. So guys, if this is something that you need help with, trust me, first of all, you've got this. This is truly possible. But if it's something that you want help with, feel free to get in touch and download our free trauma success kit. And feel free to give us a call as well, because we can help you. We can help you move forward on this journey. Right now, maybe you're feeling stuck. So guys, it's been a pleasure. But until next week, I can't wait to see you here on the next one. Namaste.